Do you like chaos in your wild card races? I know I do.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast where we talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan. If you don't believe me, take a look at my lower third right there. You can call me Sully. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer who has been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and this is my fifth full season here at the Locked On Podcast Network. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And please be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, as we really are trying to get to 1 billion subscribers. We're several hundred million short of that. And be sure to check in every day. And if you listen to us every day, give us a hashtag. Say you're an everyday Sully listener. By the way, a couple people have said they're very grateful that we are doing things like weekend podcasts, because I listen to podcasts on the weekend. I understand this notion that people don't listen to podcasts on the weekend. Then I got a message from one of my listeners who says, like, hey, wait a minute, I catch up on your podcast over the weekend. How could I possibly do that if you keep churning out new shows? I said, you up? Yeah, you got to keep up. Got to keep up. Do you know why? This is the stretch run. Okay? This is September. We got September madness, and then we got October. And let's face it, it's the summer game. Think about all it's spring is coming and all the hope of baseball in spring. And, they're the boys of summer. It's a summer game. Blah, 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 blah. Sorry, I had to adjust my headset there for a second. What do we mainly remember about a baseball year? With very few exceptions, you remember October. You remember the postseason. You could have a great regular season team, and if they come up short in October, they become a blip. There are a bunch of Joe Torre and Bobby Cox-led Yankee and Brave teams that won over 100 games that I bet you have zero memories of. But I bet you remember the 2000 Yankees who won the World Series. I bet you remember the 2021 Braves, not led by Bobby Cox, who won the World Series a couple of years ago. Do you know how good the 2011 Phillies were? They were phenomenal. They were one of the best regular season teams I've ever seen. Rally scroll goes by. Adam Wainwright gets Ryan Howard to fall in a heap. Cardinals eliminate them. We remember the Cardinals, but that Phillies team is an obscure footnote now because of October. So guess what? The stretch run, here we go. Playoff time. I'm going to be dropping episodes and shorts whenever I feel like it. And then when it comes to November, guess what I'm going to do? I'm still going to have a show virtually every single day, 5 days a week. And you can catch up on those. Those are going to be, most of the time, a little more evergreen and everything. But this is the good stuff. The good stuff. That's what we're getting right now. This is the stuff at the bottom of the yogurt that tastes great. This is the good stuff. That's right. I'm comparing myself to yogurt. Now, right now, what we're getting is a little something called Better Than I Expected. I even jokingly talked yesterday about the event that actually happened today happening, thinking, well, that's probably not going to happen, but it'd be a lot of fun if it did. And this is coming from someone who, again, I cannot claim to be completely impartial. There are teams that I root for, teams that I don't root for. I'm unabashed in saying I'm a native New Englander who grew up rooting for the Red Sox. My father, may he rest in peace, was a diehard San Francisco Giant fan. He was a New York Giant fan growing up and became a San Francisco Giant fan. And so I have made it clear that over the years, my teams have been the Red Sox and the Giants. But especially since I've been hosting this show, I've become a little more, if not neutral, then certainly just willing to see the drama unfold. Having a decade where the Red Sox and Giants won multiple World Series championships have allowed me to be a little more zen about things. And what I want, and I've always wanted, is to be able to get to Labor Day with a sense of chaos, with a sense of we don't know who's getting in. And I have said that if you get to the day after Labor Day and your team is in position for a playoff spot, then the general manager and the front office could all tip their hats and say, we did our job. We gave you a summer. We gave you a summer of entertainment. We gave you a team that went into the fall a contender with a spot to go to the postseason. And what I was joking about the other day was, can you imagine if this happened and this happened and this happened? These four things happen. We would have, going into Labor Day, a four-way tie for the third National League wildcard spot. In other words, that spot where there's no fallback. That's it. That's the last chopper. You're hanging on by the rail there. Or the runner, sorry. And last year, we all saw the third wildcard spot in the National League went all the way to the World Series, Philadelphia Phillies. The Milwaukee Brewers, who finished one game behind the Philadelphia Phillies, played golf. They played golf when the playoffs began. And the Phillies, who upset St. Louis, and a little bit of reverse. Remember, I brought up the fact that the Cardinals defeated a superior Phillies team in 2021 or in 2011. In 2022, a inferior Phillies team returned the favor against the Cardinals and went all the way to the World Series. No one remembers the fact that the 2022 Cardinals were a very good team. Okay, that being said, it was the farewell of Pujols and Molina. Anyway, that was the revenge on that. I digressed a little bit. The fourth wildcard spot right now is a virtual four-way tie. The Arizona Diamondbacks, the Miami Marlins, the San Francisco Giants, those three teams have identical records at this point of the year. 137 games into the season, they are break even. Now, the Cincinnati Reds have played two more games than the rest of those teams. They have one more win and one more loss. That's why I say it's a virtual tie. And they have, they've played 139. Those two have played 100. The Reds have played 139 games. The other teams played 137 games. And it unfolded in kind of a fun way. The Marlins were playing the Nats, and it was a back and forth game. Marlins jumped up to a 3-0 lead. Arise hit a leadoff home run, and the Nats came storming back, and it looked like it was going to be a situation like the Blue Jays had in Colorado the other day. I can't believe you blew that big lead. And Thomas hit a home run for the Nats, and it was tied going to the ninth. And then the Nationals made the National shortstop threw the ball away to allow Arise to score. And the Marlins were very aggressive on the base paths, going first to third, stealing bases and everything like that, putting the ball in play. And with that, the Marlins wound up getting a 6-4 win in Washington, D.C. The other big games that happened in regards to the wild card situation, the Baltimore Orioles, who, by the way, have been playing great. You heard that, Orioles fans who think I'm dismissing them? They've been playing great. I still think they could have picked up a pitcher at the deadline, but they didn't pick up the big pitcher, and they wound up beating Zach Gallen and the Zach Gallen. Oh man, I just heard Millard go all after me. But it was Rutschman, 2-run double. You got who else got the big hit there? There was another big, huge hit there. O'Hearn got the 2-run single there. Henderson got a 2-run single. You got a 2-run single. I got a 2-run single. Final score was 8-5, and it was a 4-run 6th inning that really did in the D-backs. A first inning rally did in the Giants. Juan Soto hit a 2-run home run. The Padres were up 3 bagel very early against Cobb with Cobb on the mound. Giants lost again to San Diego, and the in the Reds and Cubs game, which was the early game, it looked like it was going to be one of those back and forth games. It was 4-3 after 2 with the Cubs in the lead, and then suddenly, or with the Reds in the lead, I'm sorry, and suddenly the Cubs bats absolutely just went off. Happ got the big, huge bomb. He wound up driving in 4 runs, and the final score, it looked like a Bears-Bengals game. The final score was 15-7, Chicago Cubs. And with all of those events happening, we have ourselves a 4-way tie. A 4-way tie. Now, there are tiebreakers and everything like that, and I don't have all that in front of me, and eventually they'll be able to say, if this team ties with this team, that'll happen, this and that. But the best way to get in is just have the better record. All right? And you have fewer than 30 games and 4 teams for one spot. And let me tell you something. That's exactly what you want. Now, if you're a Diamondback fan or a Reds fan or a Giants fan or a Marlins fan, sorry. This is not what you want, obviously. But if you're a fan of any of the other 26 teams, or you're me, sort of sitting above like the puppet master, how am I the puppet master? Then this is glorious, because we now have less than 30 games, and may the best team win, because there's only one slot for them. Hey, let's take a little bit to talk about our friends from Nutrafol. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Now, I happen to be blessed with a head of hair that has stuck on my head for the first 51 years of my life. But for the next 51 years, I've got my eyes on it. And then for the third 51 years, well, we'll deal with that when it comes around. Nutrafol provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Men think that losing their hair is inevitable. So take control of your hair's future with Nutrafol's science-backed hair growth supplement for men. Look at 80% of all men will experience hair thinning. I still have hair on my head. It's a lot thinner than it used to be. I looked at some pictures of me when I started podcasting about 10, 11, 12 years ago. It was a little thicker. But it's normal. But it doesn't have to be your fate. You can get ahead of thinning with Nutrafol. If you're tired of the thinning hair, you want to reach your full hair potential, leading hair growth supplement Nutrafol will help you find your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Now, Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. So go to Nutrafol.com/men to take their hair health wellness quiz. Identify causes for your thinning hair, and Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through your whole body wellness. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health. Nutrafol provides healthy hair growth from within by targeting root cause thinning, such as stress, which we're all going to have down the pennant race. Hormones, I got that. Environment, working on it. Nutrition, yikes. Lifestyle, and metabolism, oh boy, through whole body health. And it works! In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months of taking Nutrafol men's hair growth supplements. So, take the first step to visible, thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Find out why 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled NUTRAFOL.com/men, MEN, and enter promo code LOCKEDONMLB. I won't spell that one for you, but I will say that's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code, what is that? LOCKEDONMLB. I mentioned I made a quick little note yesterday. I basically trashed the Blue Jays for an inexcusable game where they blew an early 5-run lead. The closer was all but handing them the game. But you got to give the team credit where credit is due, because today they fell behind again, and then to the Colorado Rockies. And oh boy, I was about to absolutely throttle the Blue Jays if they wound up losing this game again, losing yet another game in Colorado. And Hunter, there was a big hour-long rain delay, and then they came back. Vladdy Guerrero wound up tying the game. The Blue Jays took the lead, but in the bottom of the ninth, Hunter Goodman got a double for the Colorado Rockies. And I was doing errands today while listening to 78 ball games at the same time. And while that was going on, a lot of times I kind of sort of prep what I'm going to be saying on this show. And I was going to absolutely eviscerate the Toronto Blue Jays. And I did a podcast earlier this year where I called for the firing of manager Snyder. I did not think that he was the right manager for this team. Honestly, I still don't think he is. I still think the Blue Jays could benefit from a change in management. I still do. But you got to give them the credit where credit is due. They went to the ninth inning, and it was, the Rockies played some sloppy ball. It was big walks, and it was Merrifield that got the hit that put Toronto ahead. By the way, they used Lawrence again. Lawrence was awful yesterday. I don't think the Colorado Rockies have a pitching staff that's as deep as the 1993 Braves, another team that won over 100 games. It didn't go far in the postseason, so people don't remember them that much. But holy Toledo, you got to use him again the day after he stunk up the joint and nearly handed the game to Toronto? Well, he got the loss, and surprise, a lot of it had to do with walks. But with that, the Blue Jays managed to squeeze out that game. So good for them. Good for them. One of the strangest games today was played between Minnesota and Texas. And again, another game where both teams were doing everything in their power to hand the game back to the other team. I mean, every single, the Rangers got out of the gate fast with a home run in the first. Royce Lewis, who seems like he's hit 80 home runs in the last 2 weeks, and most of them have been grand slams, he got his home run. How does he only have 10 home runs? Every time I look at a Minnesota Twins highlight, Royce Lewis has a home run. All right, maybe we should look at him more. Then the Twins wound up, they winds up being tied going to the seventh. The Rangers take the lead, and then the eighth inning, Lewis. Wow, well there's Lewis again. He gets a single to give him to tie the game, and this time it goes into the ninth, and Adolis Garcia hits a walk-off home run for the Texas Rangers, wearing beautiful powder blue uniforms. I always thought powder blue were away uniforms, but I digress. The fact of the matter is the Rangers got that win, and that was a very important win for them. First of all, because the fact that the Mets and Adam Ottavino held on for dear life and wound up, with the tying run was at the plate, defeated the Seattle Mariners. With that, the Texas Rangers have pulled to within a game of first place. However, they remain only a game and a half ahead of Toronto. They are within striking distance of being in first place and skipping the wild card round altogether. And they are also almost within striking distance of missing the playoffs altogether. And starting this week, it's going to be an all Texas series, Houston versus the Rangers. And both teams could make a grand statement. And one of them could push the other to the brink of extinction with as season being past the All-Star break. By the way, I just want to give, I know I have a bunch of Oriole fans who listen to the show, and some of them think I've been disrespectful to the team. I'm really not. I really felt they could have improved the team, and they could have let go of some of the giant roster of prospects they have. I'm going to do a little bit of what is called horizontal promotion, which is because, and I promised to have talked about this. I just haven't gotten around to doing it because other baseball news have gotten in the way. The Orioles management is showing you why I was saying they should have a sense of urgency, because it doesn't strike me that this Orioles management wants to keep this team around for a very long time. So it's important to win when you can. It could very well be this year. And, you know, when you look up and you see Santander and you see Gunnar Henderson and you see Mountcastle and you see Rutschman, you see all these players who they're all playing very well. None of them are putting together an MVP type season, but they're all playing very well. And that's one of the reasons why I find this Oriole team to be so intriguing, because one of those players could explode and become an MVP candidate. But what they're doing, and they're kind of using the Joe Torre Yankees and the Bruce Bochy Giants as kind of a template in terms of how they're putting the team on the field. The Joe Torre Yankees were star-studded, but they never seemed to have, in terms of their position players, they never had the best player at any one position. You think about the 80s. Posada was, not the best catcher in the American League, but Rodriguez was. And you could go down, or you could find better at each position all around the American League during the 90s, the early 2000s. Palmeiro, Mo Vaughn at first base, Frank Thomas at DH, Robbie Alomar at second base, Nomar, Omar Vizquel, A-Rod at shortstop. Maybe third base was Scott Brocious. The Yankees were the best one there. There were some other very good third basemen as well. But once Ventura went from the White Sox to the Mets, maybe Brocious was the best third baseman in the American League. But they had a revolving door of left fielders at a time when there was Albert Bell. They had Bernie Williams at center, who was great, but Ken Griffey Jr. was the best center fielder in the American League. I'm going out on a limb and saying that. Paul O'Neill was a fine right fielder, but Juan Gonzalez was the best right fielder in the American League at that point. But they made sure they didn't have the best, but they had an answer everywhere. Same thing with the Giants at that time. Posey was probably the best catcher in the National League, but all around you had players who were good, very good, some of them, but none of them were great, but they had an answer everywhere. Whether, it's Pence or Scooter Rowe, it's Pablo Sandoval, Edgar Renteria for a little bit, Aaron Rowan for a little bit, and Angel Pagan for a bit. I mean, they always made sure there was an answer. And it seems like the Orioles are doing that right now. You go up and down the lineup. Everyone's good. The people they're putting in are good. And a lot of them are young that they may spring into great. But even if they just stay at good, that's going to be very helpful for the Orioles as they contend in what might not be the biggest window of opportunity due to Fredo Angelos, who runs the team. It makes them an exciting squad, and I think makes them a very dangerous squad. And it's going to be interesting because when we get to the postseason, assuming that Baltimore, Tampa, Seattle, the Rangers, and Minnesota, those are going to be your main playoff team. There may be another team mixed if Toronto is thrown into the mix, fine. Houston's going to be extraordinarily dangerous because of their experience and the fact that they're defending champs and that they're still very good. But Baltimore, because they have an answer everywhere, and their pitching I got to give their starting pitching credit. Flaherty wasn't great today, but their starting pitching has been a lot better than I gave them credit for. They could be right there at the end. Do you hear that, Oriole fans? Do you hear that? Was that enough respect? It may be time to bust open my sleeper app. And basically, when I take a look at some of those great hitters that you have in Baltimore, those terrific young hitters, I should be every day I should be busting up Santander. Every day busting up Adley Rutschman because they seem to be getting big hits every single day. And if I was going to sleeper, I could be turning that into big, big money. And as I mentioned, we're coming down the stretch. The playoffs are like right there, right around the corner. And the clock is ticking now if you want to get your 100 times your cash on daily fantasy by using Sleeper. This is the best time of the year. And I mentioned those great hitters on the Orioles. Well, what about Acuna? What about Freddie Freeman? Olsen hit a home run today for the Atlanta Braves in a losing cause. Judge is going to hit a bunch more. Ohtani's going to do something. You know that. And some other player we're not even thinking about is going to come up big. Pick more or less on stats for the big stars, and you get for stats like home runs, strikeouts, stolen bases, and more for a 100 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right, and you could win big. Okay? Now, use promo code Locked On, and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Come on. $100 match? Boom, boom, twice on Santander. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. This is Sleeper. These are the playoffs. It's your money. Let's get 100 times. So just a couple other quick notes coming on here. Millard Thomas and I are going to be doing a show probably tomorrow. I'm going to bust out the Ouija board, see if I can summon the ghost of Millard Fillmore. That would be an interesting discussion to have as well. Let's give some credit to Alec Bohm, because Alec Bohm, the third baseman for the Philadelphia Phillies, made a critical error the other day, and it was just devastating in that loss to the Milwaukee Brewers. And today he wound up homering as the Phillies doubled up the Brewers 4-2. So good to dust yourself off from there. I mentioned that the Mets and Pete Alonso doubled up the Mariners 6-3. The Red Sox, Chris Sale got the win. Zach Greinke got the loss. Hey, let's go talk about another episode. I'm going to pay tribute to Johnny Cueto and Zach Greinke later on this week. Two players who very well might be facing the end of their careers. And they have two careers. I don't know if either one of them is going to the Hall of Fame. They're going to have interesting Hall of Fame conversations. But they certainly had careers worth mentioning. Cueto got the win the other day for Miami. Greinke got the loss today for Kansas City. So there you go on that. The only other game of real note, by the way, the Dodgers and Bobby Miller salvaged a 3-1 victory over the Atlanta Braves, so they were not swept out of their own building. Really weird game, a game of two halves. And that means nothing in the standings, but it's one that I take a peek at because I live here in California. The A's-Angels game. You ever see a movie where like the first half feels like it's one thing, and then the second half it goes on a completely different tangent, and you go, wait, am I watching the same movie? There was a movie came out last year called The Triangle of Sadness that with Woody Harrelson that went down a weird path. $1 Million Baby. There's a movie. I actually just thought that's probably the best example I could think of, where like the first half of the movie, it's this rousing sports film. And the second half of the movie, it's this really depressing hospital movie. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's another example that I can think of that the film just goes like, wait a minute, am I watching the same movie? And I had that experience today with the Angels and the A's game. Now, the Angels are obviously they're the Angels. And again, promoting a show down the line, I've gotten a ton of YouTube responses from Angel fans, and a couple of them are worth responding to. Today's game was like, I can't believe it was the same game. I couldn't believe that wasn't butter, and I can't believe this was the same game. For the first half of the game, it looked like, and I had my antenna up because Tyler Anderson of the Angels was throwing a no-hitter. You know, having the MLB app, if the no-hitter goes into the sixth inning, they put that little rectangle that says no-hitter. And you go, ooh, who's throwing a no-hitter? And I saw Tyler Anderson was throwing a no-hitter. And he was doing it against the Oakland A's. And sorry, my many, did I mention many A's fans, friends, if any team could be no-hit, it's the A's. And so I checked in. Again, in the sixth inning, is he going to throw a no-hitter? Is he going to throw no-hitters? Tyler Anderson going to throw a no-hitter? Is this going to be a nice highlight of what has been an otherwise disastrous Angels season. And yeah, Angels fans, it's been a disastrous season. But the no-hitter was broken up. And then it was broken up and then some. And it was Diaz got a triple that wound up putting the A's on top. Seth Brown hit a home run. Ryan Noda hit a home run. And Noda wound up getting on Jose Soriano made a dumb error. And then there was, Kemp got a RBI single. Like, all of a sudden, like, the first half was an Angels dominating no-hitter. And the second half was the A's offense exploding. And the final score was 10-6. The A's were getting no hit into the sixth inning and then put 10 runs up. And mind you, these aren't the A's of Reggie Jackson. These aren't the A's of Ricky Henderson and Canseco and McGuire. These aren't the A's of Giambi and Tejada. These aren't the A's of Eric Chavez. These aren't the A's of Josh Reddick and Yoenis Cespedes. Hell, these aren't the A's of Matt Chapman, Sean Murphy, and Matt Olson. Remember, they were all on the team not that long ago. This is a team where I'm sure you could make a couple of games as a platoon player. Yeah, you. And they put up 10 runs in 2 innings. Was that the same game? This is the same game. There being no hit. And suddenly it's a football score. Baseball can be strange. Baseball can be unpredictable. And let me tell you something. If I went on Sleeper, I would have put a lot on Ryan Noda. Boost him up. We made 100 times my money. 100 times. But happy Labor Day, everybody. Hope you have your day off. And we have chaos. We have anarchy. 4 teams are going into Labor Day with the same odds. Yeah, but Stanley, what about the tiebreaker? Shut up. They're all tied. Ready? Go. So go to Locked On MLB on Instagram or Twitter or whatever the heck Twitter is called these days. You can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And once again, the trivia question, which no one has thrown an answer out to. When was the last time the man who led the league, the National League in stolen bases, faced off against the team who led the American League in stolen bases in the World Series? I'll give you time to look that up. And check me out if you do the Immaculate Grid. I post mine every day on the Sully Baseball feed on Twitter, or again, whatever they're calling it these days. Talk about the anarchy and chaos that is Labor Day weekend. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please, please call me Sully.